All right, this last short writing assignment addresses September 11th as an example of intelligence failure. The article is by Amy Ziegert, who is the Davis Family Senior Fellow at the Hoover Institute, where she directs the Robert and Marion Oster National Security Affairs Fellows Program. If you don't know, the Hoover Institute is a center-right think tank established at Stanford University. I think the general consensus in academia is that the Hoover Institute is one of the better, more serious, and less overtly ideological think tanks on the conservative end of the spectrum. Ziegert also served in the Clinton administration on National Security Council staff while in graduate school, and she's written for The Atlantic. So, in my opinion, she's a fairly centrist academic who's developed a real expertise on national security and political economic issues. I read her a lot. I think with her and Richard Betts, they're golden in terms of giving you a real inside look at the intelligence community. In simple terms, Ziegert is making an argument that the intelligence community in 2000 and 2001 simply didn't connect the dots. So why does Ziegert believe that this failure occurred? Her central variable is the idea of adaptation failures, right? So what are some of the reasons she advances for the failure to adapt? Are large decentralized bureaucratic institutions like the IC particularly vulnerable to adaptation failure? Why is that? What's the difference between change and adaptation in Ziegert's narrative here? About 6 pages into the article, she asks some important questions that should help you structure your review of her argument. Number 1, did intelligence officials and policymakers recognize the gravity of the threat posed by Al-Qaeda before September 11th? And if so, when? Timing is important. 2, did they understand the connection between the terrorist threat and the imperative for organizational change? And 3, to what extent did they achieve the organizational changes they believed were necessary? So, analyzing those 3 questions and how Ziegert answers them gets you pretty far down the road for your essay. The rest of it ought to consider, the rest of your essay ought to consider the kinds of reforms required to lessen the likelihood of a repeat of this 9/11 adaptation failure. But we also have to be aware, and this is an interesting thing, one of Ziegert's early books provides a useful counterpoise to the idea that we have to reform the intelligence community to make sure that there are no more 9/11s, which is really a stand-in for more efficient. We want a better IC that prevents 9/11. Ziegert in 1999 wrote a book called Flawed by Design, The Evolution of the CIA, the JSC, and the NSC. Remember, it's a short walk between effective intelligence community and police state, right? So keep that in mind as you write this review. As always, if you have any questions regarding this assignment, please don't hesitate to contact me.